Alright, so the first image we're going to be looking at is from Caro. It's this detective scene. I like the color palette that you have so far. I really like the idea of this red light from behind. I think it can really help separate him. So like if we take all of this section and we make it brighter and then have some halo around it, it should help him read dark against bright. So that's a really good idea. But I don't think that we should try to use this rim to sculpt him on his front planes. We should definitely just keep this rim on his back planes just to catch the edge of him. The blocking, the read of dark against bright is going to be what's going to make the shot read. We shouldn't try to rely on the rim light for that. So something else that I think is a good idea for this shot is to introduce actual practical lights. Let's find a couple of places in the room where a light would make sense, and let's put something visible in frame so we can instruct the audience, hey, this is where the light is coming from. That's why, we have light on the screen right of his face. Until we see some kind of practical light in frame, it's going to be very difficult to motivate the light on him. It's going to cause him to look a little flat and generic. Once we introduce a light, then it's going to be a lot easier for us to sell the idea that he's lit by something physically present in the shot. I like the idea of a light in the back here, because as he approaches this area, it should allow us to get some nice separation where he's going to read dark on bright. I think he allows us for a good opportunity to create a pool of light that he can enter as he goes from screen left to screen right. All right, so next image we have is from Javadevil. All right, so this is my previous paint over, and this is the new paint over using your updated image. It's similar. I just made a slight tweak in temperature, and I tried to clarify a couple of things. So let's go over them. I think your wrap is now working great. We had a very harsh terminator line before, and now we were able to smooth it. So this area is working a lot better. I think we have room to introduce a little bit more of those nice reds that we see here, either by warming up the wrap light or making it just a touch brighter. And once we do that, I think we're going to be like almost one-to-one with the reference. Now, the biggest difference between the reference and what you have is that we have this fill light, which is a great idea, by the way, because it does help to like bring up some areas in the shadows that would otherwise go flat. But I think it's too bright. So let's bring it down 1 or 2 stops. And once we do that, we should regain a similar amount of contrast as we see in the reference. So at that point, we're going to want to try and sculpt some of those areas with some blue fill. Because you see this guy in the back, for example, has some kind of shaping from screen left, right? And it's soft, it's not very harsh, it's a pretty soft light source. So we should try to introduce that. It would be essentially a cool, big light from around this angle, similar to the key, but more from the side, while the key is more frontal, right? And then once we do that, let's grab the same hue or a similar hue, also very cool, and then use it as a rim light so we can catch some of those highlights that we see here. And we want to use that to add extra shaping on our characters. It's possible you might not be able to get a very good shaping on this sphere because it's possible it might blend with the key over here, but it might give you just enough of an edge, a cool edge in this area, similar to what we see here. And it might even help you get some shaping, like some cool rim on these edges that we see over here. So it might help you get some of those edges in the image. So let's do that and take a look at this image again. Right, so third we have Isabella. All right. And as far as paint over, this is actually the same paint over as before. I think we can still work towards some of those notes. This is what we had before. I pointed out that some of those areas felt a little lifted, and I suggested introducing a wrap light. When I go before and after all the new version, it feels like we have warmed up the key, which is great, but we still have room to go warmer. The key side still feels a little dull compared to this one. Now, there's a chance that it's feeling a little dull because you might have a fill light lifting those shadows. Those shadows are feeling a little gray. They were neutral before and they're feeling a little green now. So let's try to add a wrap so that we can get a little bit more warm light wrapping around his face. And let's see if we can reduce the fill light here so that we regain a little bit more contrast. We regain a core shadow over here. And then it looks like compared to the last take, we lost this rim light that we had here. So let's try to reintroduce a very subtle rim light motivated by this sky color. And then I like the specular highlights we have so far that we have introduced because before it was feeling a little empty. But let's see if we can move them a little bit more to the left and favor the one on the left so that the one on the left is brighter and the one on the right is dimmer. Maybe tricky to notice, but these values are a little brighter on the left and a little darker on the right. You can see that. And then let's see if we can add some shaping on those irises. Like ideally, I would like to see this side of the irises to go darker. Kind of like that. So that when we add a specular highlight on top of it, it really reads bright on dark, right? Because until we get that going, the eyes will feel a little dull. Like they won't have as much shape as they could have. So let's try to darken this area essentially. And I'm not sure if that's something that the shader can give you, but otherwise there's some cheats in Nuke where, for example, if this is a hypothetical iris, let's say, cannot. Okay. All right. So let's say this is a hypothetical iris. If we want to add shape into it, how can we do that? There's a trick where in Nuke you can essentially use a drop shadow or an inner shadow. So essentially you're able to draw a gradient inside that shape, and you can use that to darken the area. Like you see how here I just duplicated the same shape we had before, and then I moved it slightly on the left, right? So this allows us to get a little bit of shaping on it. And it's just a 2D trick, right? But it allows us to shape something just based on a matte. So essentially you would grab a matte and then you would do like a offset and you would just blur it a little bit and it will allow you to get a little bit more shaping. And we can do the same thing but in reverse, where we can just take this original shape and then make it brighter this time. So we can make it look like a caustic. And then we do the same trick. So you see that we started with a circle, we moved it up, we moved it down to the right, make it brighter, we moved it top to the left, make it darker, and now we have shaping. So this can be a simple cheat that can give us depth, whereas we had none before. All right? And then I think that would be it. Oh, actually, I was feeling like his skin is a little bit dull. Let's see if we can introduce more specular highlights. So get a little bit more specular highlights on his skin. I'm not sure if this is going to be an overall change or just in roughness in some areas, but it's feeling a little dull. I feel like it could use a little bit of specular highlights here and there. All right, cool. That's all. Thank you guys.